Why NATO or the US is in Asia? We can deal with our conflicts by ourselves. Look at the history. Before the United States came, before the European Anglo-Saxons came, we didn't have wars. We have these differences. We have maybe clashes of interest at some issues because countries in this region in Asia, we are so diverse. We have different ethnic groups. We have different races of people. We have different religions. We are very, very different from each other. But somehow people in Asia manage to have peace for centuries.
Welcome to the Global Majority for Peace podcast. I'm Ileana Chan, and my co-host is Fiona Edwards. This podcast will be brought to you every fortnight. We will be discussing with special guests from across the world our mission of building a global movement against the US-led war drive against China, Russia, and countries in the global south. If you like what you hear, please do subscribe to this channel so you receive a notification when we release new episodes. And if you appreciate our work, you can support us by becoming a member of Empire Watch on Patreon. The links are in the description below. Your support is vital for building this movement.
And today we are so happy to introduce an amazing guest to the Global Majority for Peace podcast, Li Jingjing. Li Jingjing is a very prominent Chinese journalist and analyst and commentator on international affairs. And she's the host of the hit show Talk It Out with Li Jingjing, which is a really amazing podcast that you can check out on YouTube. Jingjing, we're so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm also so happy to see women, all of us women doing this show, talking about politics. And we need more female voices to discuss geopolitics, right? So I'm so glad I joined.
Totally.
Thank
yes.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. In recent years, as the United States foreign policy has become more and more belligerent against China, we have seen the mainstream Western media promote a negative, inaccurate image of China internationally on a daily basis. Your show, The Amazing Talk It Out with Li Jingjing, offers a different perspective. Can you speak a little bit about your experience of combating anti-China propaganda and maybe some of the realities that you're seeing right now?
Okay, so thank you. You know, I used to study and lived in other countries, Western countries as well. So wherever I read Western mainstream media, when they talk about China, it always feels so strange. It's like a different China that we Chinese students are from. So it wasn't that bad decades ago, but especially in past few years, it get worse and worse. I think there's two major turning points for me to become really, really vocal on social networks to show the reality of China to audiences, to viewers outside China. So first is the riots in Hong Kong in 2019. And because many of my friends living in Hong Kong, either Hong Kongers or expats living in Hong Kong, they've been telling me, you know, I saw the riots, how horrifying the riots are in front of my apartment. And then I went back home, turned on the television, watching CNN, showing a completely different story. So they got so angered. And it was a turning point for so many people, not just Chinese people, but also expats, foreigners who have been living in China for so long. They saw how much lies, how this media are twisting the facts. And then in early 2020 is another turning point for me because I was a reporter sent to Wuhan. The city got the first wave of COVID-19 and was under a lockdown. So I was a reporter being sent to lockdown to report, to talk to all the people, doctors, patients, survivors. I saw how people are pulling together to fight against this very fatal coronavirus that no one had experienced how to deal with. The people are pulling together. And then that was the peak of racist comments towards Chinese people. All kinds of lies towards people in Wuhan, towards people in the rest of China. So I was like, I'm the reporter in the front line on the ground. I know exactly what is happening. So how about I speak for myself? I speak for my people since I know the two languages. Don't let this correspondence speaking on behalf of us and twisting the facts. So after that, I became very vocal, and I always travel to Tibet, I always travel to Xinjiang, all these regions that some Westerners really cared about for some reasons. They suddenly care about the region. So like, since I'm there, I'm gonna show how people's lives are there, showing the realities there. And I start to get more followers. The first few posts that got me a lot of followers on Twitter are not some like fancy interviews, fancy videos. It's just random photos of blue skies, random pedestrians walking on the streets of Tibet, and people are smiling, people are painting, this traditional Tibetan art, painting Buddha. It's very, I don't know how to word, but it's very long tradition, very difficult handicrafts, like technique skills. I'm just showing the random, like everyday life, everyday scenery of Tibet. And I start to get a lot of followers. And why? They said, I heard Tibet a lot on social networks, on Western media. Those people, those followers said, I have never seen those photos. I have never seen the skies in Tibet are so blue. I have never seen people in China are laughing or smiling. It's just as simple as that. So I realized people don't really get to see the very basic, very simple stuff of everyday Chinese people's lives. So I start to share this to the people, and luckily people are interested in hearing firsthand stories from Chinese people. So I'm glad more people are waking up to the Western mainstream propaganda and start to listen to us tell our stories. So that's my journey, became very vocal on social networks.
Amazing. And I think it really shines a light and kind of gets over some of this. Really, every story about China in the mainstream Western media is negative. Poverty is reduced, and it's like at what cost? I don't know if you remember all those hilarious headlines, but it gives a really false portrayal of China in the Western public image. And one of the latest newer propaganda lines, which is in the Western media, is that China is producing too many solar panels and that China's massive investment in green industries is somehow a problem. What do you make of this new attack? And what is China doing to combat climate change that we might not know about because of the bias of the Western media?
I remember 10 years ago, 20 years ago, all the media are attacking China for pollution. They're polluting the air. Your emissions is too huge. So all the media are accusing China, like you have the responsibility to reduce your emissions, to do that, to save the environment because they're the biggest emitter. And that's 10 years ago. Now the air is clean, the rivers are clean. China planting more trees to make the earth greener. So China did a lot to save the environment, and the media still attack China. So they're like, well, what do you want? It's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. So no matter what you do, they just gonna attack you. And for example, solar panels and also the electric cars. And I want to mention, if you come to China nowadays, you'll be shocked at the number of electric cars on the streets. So many green plates of the cars, because green plates means your e-cars. There's so many Chinese brands making very cutting edge e-cars. My family has an e-car. So many families have an e-car. So it's good, right? It's much cheaper. It's cheaper than gasoline. It's a green energy, renewable energy. It's good for the environment. And remember how they attack China for this? You have an overcapacity. You have an overcapacity of what? Just because we've been working, the Chinese people have been working, making cutting edge technologies. E-cars, solar panels with this renewable energies, it's good for the environment, good for the working class people, good for people in the global south who want to spend less on this energy, right? So it's a good thing because it's making cars, all these things more affordable for the people, less rich people. But then you will see in the past few months, America start to attack China as over capacity and start to ban China's e-cars. Why? Because they think the Chinese e-cars is making their Mercedes-Benz, Audis, Ford, Volvo, all these cars not competitive anymore. So they are not even interested in catching up with the e-cars technology. Since like you are much more advanced, we just not going to do that. And we're going to ban your cars. So that's their tactic. That also reminds me of a research by some Western researcher. The headline, the cover is China's air is cleaner, but at what cost? 10 years ago, it is China polluted the air. But now it's like China's air is cleaner at what cost? So this is the same old tactic. Damn it if you do, damn it if you don't. But if you ask the real experts on environmental protection, either from former United Nations, like Eric Solheim, he's former Secretary of the United Nations, and he's an expert on environmental protection. I talked to him and interviewed him. He said he's shocked and he could never imagine China would make such a progress on environmental protection 10 years ago. And if ask economist, American economist Jeffrey Sachs, and he also said China is amazing at the space of renovating technologies. So I mean, all these leading experts are saying China is actually doing a much more good work for the saving the planet. But only the media, only some politicians are not happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one of the more contentious topics, with China, you mentioned it a little bit briefly, Tibet and Xinjiang. Obviously, Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Taiwan is really those areas that the West really care about, But I think the one that's particularly egregious right now is the concept of genocide in Xinjiang, considering we have what's happening in Gaza. And as you obviously know, Anthony Blinken went to China a few months ago now, I think. But before he went there, like a few days before he went there, he said that, oh yeah, Xinjiang is carrying out a genocide. And he said that during, as we can witness the genocide in Gaza. It was extremely provocative statements to make just before a state visit. What was the reception for the Chinese public? How was his visit received? And can you sort of expand a little bit more about what's actually happening in Xinjiang so our audience can,
Those who fabricated this lie, they can repeat 1,000 times. Is nobody gonna believe it anymore? Maybe several years ago, still some people are hesitating. But now after seeing how the US are behaving in front of an actual genocide in Gaza, nobody's buying the lies about Xinjiang. The media said there's a 1 million or 2 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang being persecuted. But if there's such large number, why we haven't seen any single photo or footage of the horrific genocide you're accusing of? And we are seeing the horrible photos and footage of actual genocide towards children, women, patients in hospitals in Gaza, and they don't dare to use the word genocide. How hypocritical is that? So I don't think anyone is buying into this lie anymore. And second, last month, I went to Xinjiang again. I went to Xinjiang dozens of times already. But last month, it was a little bit different because I went with a group of Arab journalists. They are from 20 different Arab nations. They were invited to go to Xinjiang. We traveled to different parts, south part, northern part, and go to talk to business people, regular folks. And we all went to mosques, Islamic institutes. All the Arab journalists, they like Xinjiang so much. They are Muslims. And when they talk to Muslim people, Chinese Muslims in Xinjiang, they're like, oh, they start to communicate in Arabic, right? They can discuss Quran, discuss many religious thoughts. And after talk, they were like, wait, they're just like us. There's no difference. So all of these journalists, they're from Egypt, Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Lebanon, all these Arab nations. All of them love Xinjiang. And I asked each of them, what do you think? Do you think Islam in Xinjiang is just like your country? So no difference. Actually, their mosques, some of their mosques are even much nicer than our mosques. And one reporter from Algeria said he doesn't believe any of the lies because not only was he visiting mosques in Xinjiang, the largest mosque in Algeria, the largest mosque in Algeria, the largest mosque in Africa, the third largest mosque in Arab world is built by Chinese company. So he doesn't buy any of these lies. And if these Muslim people, after having direct conversations, interactions with the local Muslim people, they have no problem with that. Why the United States, why Europeans who never liked Muslim people suddenly care so much about Chinese Muslim people? Is that hypocritical? I think that says a lot. So I think that at this point, it doesn't matter whether the US, the European, these Western scholars, politicians believe this lie or not. It doesn't matter because the actual Muslim people, the actual Muslim countries already believe that there's nothing wrong in Xinjiang. If those people understand, they already chose to work with China, especially after seeing the total hypocritical, horrendous crimes the US is sponsoring. So, I mean, that's what matters.
100%. And I mean, just to go on straight into another really controversial topic, or what shouldn't be a controversial topic, but is a controversial topic because of the way the Western media portray it, is the issue of Taiwan, which is becoming a very hot topic. Obviously, the international community, including the United States, recognizes that Taiwan is actually part of China. And I think up to this point, it's 183 countries across the world that have diplomatic relations with China and therefore recognize that Taiwan is part of China. But what we've seen in recent years actually is the United States start to erode its support for this one China principle. They're arming Taiwan and really hyping up this issue in the mainstream Western media. So I just wondered if you could explain to our listeners why Taiwan is part of China, maybe explain some of the history there, and also explain why is the US engaging in all these provocative actions?
Well, there's a long history of where to start. So whatever the disputes are between Chinese mainland and Taiwan Island, it's the result of a civil war. It's internal conflicts. So the CPC, Communist Party of China, and the KMT, Kuomintang Party, they used to have a civil war, and the KMT was defeated by CPC. So the leader, Chiang Kai-shek, led KMT fled to the Taiwan Island, and CPC became the ruling party of whole China. So basically, that's because of the civil conflict. But even though KMT fled to Taiwan, they never stopped recognizing themselves as Chinese. They have always been so proud of their Chinese culture, Chinese identity. They are just fighting with the CPC, who is the legitimate ruler of China. But they never have they denied their culture, their roots. And then, of course, after he fled to Taiwan, the US started to sponsor KMT, spent a lot of money sponsoring whatever movements it was in Taiwan. And KMT, I have to say, a lot of the conflicts in Taiwan Island was because of the bad governance of KMT. It's a really long history, but I'm trying to briefly describe it. So I talked to my friends in Taiwan. What led to the disputes? What led to the distrust towards people from the mainland? And he said it's all because of the failure of KMT, because Japan used to colonize Taiwan, and they treated everyone like as a second citizen. Local people don't like being colonized, so they were really happy that Japanese colonizers were kicked out and someone from the mainland came to Taiwan to be the government. But the KMT was so bad at it, they also treated the local people as like secondary citizens. So there was some discrimination, but it was done by the rich elites. I mean, the KMT are not ordinary average Chinese people. Even when they were in the mainland, they were the rich ruling elites that really far away from the average Chinese people. That's why they failed in the mainland. But they carry this, the ruling elites' pride and horrible governance to Taiwan, and did the same to people in Taiwan. So people in Taiwan didn't know that there's a difference between CPC and KMT. They just thought you are all from the mainland. So KMT was bad, and then probably CPC was the same. You are all from the mainland. And also KMT, when they were ruling Taiwan, they did a huge anti-CPC campaign. They keep telling people in Taiwan that how bad CPC is, and then they themselves is a bad governor. So basically, that led to a certain amount of people in Taiwan just hate people from the mainland. That's the history. So many of the internal issues is because of the internal conflicts. But then what's U.S. role in this? They just, for their U.S. own interest, they don't like CPCs being the ruling party of China, so they supported KMT. But then they realized, wow, they want to defeat Soviet Union, so we better work with China. And so the Nixons visit and start to build a relationship with China. So after they decided to form a diplomatic ties with China, they just backstabbed KMT, ditched them immediately. So they broke the ties with Taiwan Island and established diplomatic ties with Beijing, recognized Beijing, CPC is the legitimate government of China. But then secretly, they're still like in this unofficial way, sending weapons, work monies to people in Taiwan, supporting separatists in Taiwan. And my friend from Taiwan, Zhong Xiangyu, he was on my show before. He mentioned because he was born in Taiwan Island, moved to the US, and but constantly moved between Taiwan Island and the United States. He said he witnessed that his textbooks, his curriculum has been changed from a top-down fashion, just trying to erase their history with the mainland. He noticed this change when he was a kid, and his family, everyone, his parents' generations, everyone never denied their Chinese roots. All of them, they would say, I'm from Shandong province, I'm from Zhejiang province, provinces in mainland. All of them recognize their Chinese identity. And suddenly, because of the change in textbooks, because of the separatist movements, it started to teach young people in Taiwan a different history. So many of the young generations who never had ties, who never been to the mainland, they just don't know the history. So that's very complicated situation we have to face, but it caused by multiple forces, the history, the civil war, the external forces, the separatist movements that led to this. But still, it's China's internal issues. But the US sees Taiwan Island, as we call it, the unsinkable battleship, because it's so close to the mainland. Taiwan is so important for them to stick it to Chinese mainland. If that's the first island chain, they cannot afford the Chinese navies to get into the Pacific Ocean. They are very, very scared. They want to keep China within their first island chain. That's why they are trying everything to separate Taiwan Island from Chinese mainland. But I assure you, they don't want to see Taiwan to announce independence because they know China will be very, very pissed, and they don't want to do that. They just want to create the conflicts to make both of you uncomfortable. But if whoever is running the Taiwan Island, US do not want to see he announce independence, because that will also cause a great loss for US interests. So the US will do whatever to achieve the best interest for itself geopolitically. So that's, I try to explain this whole complicated issues. I hope it works.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive. We're taking you from so many hot topics, Jingjing, so it's just like great that your patience with us. We've got more to come as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to enter into another really hot topic. I guess I have my own personal interest in this region because my mom is from the Philippines. And as you know, like obviously I have relatives in China and Taiwan and Hong Kong as well. But I mean, this entire area is just becoming, I don't even know how to describe it, a hotbed of how many unsinkable battleships do the US need? But it seems like the Philippines is another one that they're kind of looking at. In April, they had a trilateral agreement between the US, Philippines, and Japan, which includes plans to conduct joint naval exercises in the South China Sea. So, I mean, obviously, we know that the Philippines has, I think, 9 US Army bases now, or maybe more. But how are these provocations viewed in China, like amongst the Chinese public, perhaps? Is there any sort of perspective about this?
I would say the Chinese people, average people, really, really hated the provocations. It's none of the United States business. I think even the scholar from Singapore, Kishore Mahbubani, he even said it, like why NATO or the US is in Asia. We can deal with our conflicts by ourselves. Look at the history. Before the United States came, before the European Anglo-Saxons came, we didn't have wars. We have these differences. We have maybe clashes of interests at some issues because countries in this region in Asia, we are so diverse. We have different ethnic groups. We have different races of people. We have different religions. We are very, very different from each other. But somehow people in Asia manage to have peace for centuries. We never had major conflicts until Anglo-Saxons came. So even he and other Asian scholars said the same thing, and I totally agree with them. So just leave Asia to Asians. You need to trust Asian people's wisdom on dealing with our internal issues, because we were very, very different. We have Muslim, we have Christians, we have Buddhists, we have Taoists. I mean, if this happened in the West, they already had clashes. just because of religion. But in Asia, we never had this conflicts. We coexist with each other very well for centuries. But also, if we can solve this peacefully, if we unite, it's very dangerous for the US-led Western domination. And that's exactly what they're doing, divide and conquer. They did the divide and conquer in Eurasia on the major land, separate East Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, Middle East, all this region, they separated because they don't want to see you unite. You cannot unite. We don't want to see peace, stability in this region. It's the same in Southeast Asia. Why are US military bases on Guam? Guam? A random island in the center of Pacific? Why so many military bases in the Philippines? Why 9 military bases? When you have so many military bases, you basically force the country to sell their sovereignty to you. Ask people in Okinawa, how do they feel? Japan sold Okinawa to the US, but what did these soldiers do in these regions where they have military bases? All kinds of crimes, and they don't have to face the punishment. So many, not to mention the robbery, but also the crimes against women and children in this region. They don't face any punishment. So how is that good for Asia? How is that good for Asia? So that's my thought. I think we should kick out the US military bases, but that's very challenging to do, of course. We should be independent. And of course, we will have differences and probably clashes in some areas, but it's normally border clashes, border issues that we can deal with ourselves, and we can do it in a peaceful way. But when the Western powers, imperialists came, it's hard to maintain peace. And that's exactly what they're doing. They don't want to see you in peace, right?
100%. And that's such a powerful message. I mean, US military bases out of Asia, British warships out of the South China Sea, that's what we want to see. And I think this message you have also of unity and building peace, this seems like a very alien concept, with what's happening in the mainstream Western media of just warmongering, trying to present China as an enemy. But this isn't really what's happening in the whole world. And I think as a journalist, you've traveled so far and wide throughout the global South. And one of the key things that are happening at the moment, one of the positive things happening in the world, is the rise of China Global South relations, the rise of the Belt and Road Initiative, and all of these vital development projects that are underway that I know you've witnessed firsthand. And just to kind of give a different story from just the war propaganda we have, would you be able to share some insights or stories that you have from these trips about China's relations with the global South, and what can we be excited about in terms of that?
So I can start with some message from the Chinese government. For example, the 20th Party Congress, major messages that China's leaders have been telling to Chinese people, but also people of the world. For example, China has promised, because in 2022, during the 20th Party Congress, so our President Xi Jinping delivered a work report which laid out a plan for China for the next 100 years. So he once again promised to people of the whole world that China's modernization is a peaceful modernization. So we will never use some countries' way of imperialism, exploitation, colonization. So China just will never do that. And China will always safeguard peace. And he also promised, no matter what stage of development that China reaches in the future, China will never seek to be a hegemony, and China will never seek to be an expansionist. And China will continue to invest more money and resources in cooperations with the global South. And China is dedicated to narrow the gap between global North and global South. And it will do whatever it can to help developing countries to develop much faster. So this is China's promise to the whole world when they laid out their work plans, long-term work plans, basically the next centenary goal. And you can see this from actions as well. Every year since 2023, I think we have people from around the world coming to China, visiting China, studying China. I know some Western media saying foreigners are leaving China, China is taking the bitter fruit because it's not open enough. But actually, foreigners are not leaving China. Foreigners are coming to China, but probably just the regions where they're from are different. Before, maybe a more Europeans, North Americans, But now probably some of them already left, but people from the global south are coming to China. Like the diversity is really amazing from Brazil, from all African nations, Latin America, from West Asia, all of them are in China. If you go to Chinese universities, you will see all these international students speaking very good Chinese. So, I mean, this is really amazing. I'm normally based in Beijing, but this week I'm in Shanghai. Why? Because I'm studying at Fudan University for the summer school. And this summer school is really, really cool because I, together with the hundreds of young scholars from all across the top universities in China, we come to study. What are we studying? We are studying Global South. So we have professors from around China, from around the world, from Europe, from Tunisia, from Latin America, coming here, giving us lectures, teaching the history or current situation or the struggles the global south are facing. So, I mean, when you see and learning the debt as well, learning the Belt and Road, how different the debt is, the world is facing. So hundreds of young scholars from really top universities like Tsinghua, Beijing University, PhD students, they are interested in learning about the global south. That's why they sign up for this course during their summer vacation. And they have been doing this since last year. If you talk to them, if the Western scholars talk to them, you will also realize these young scholars from China also have a very different view from the Western mainstream media are speaking. They have a passion and sympathy for global south. They want to change the current unfair world order. They are much younger than me. Like they are in their 20s. So like they're already interested and they are multilingual. They speak English, some of them speak Arabic, some of them speak Norwegian, some of them speak Hungarian. So I mean, it's amazing when you see a young Chinese student speaking like a random European language or Arabic language and Spanish. And the number of Chinese students learning Arabic is like shocking because when I was in the trip in Xinjiang, I saw several young Chinese women and men speaking outstanding Arabic. That's how multi-talented the young generations of Chinese people are. They are interested in learning about different civilizations. They're interested in learning different languages. They have a dream of going to different parts of the world. I have a friend from Iraq who last year came to China, give lectures at the top university in Beijing. And he said, I was amazed by the young Chinese students. First, they speak very fluent Arabic. Second, they understand politics. And third, some of them, like one of the students told him, oh, I'm also learning Swahili because I want to go to Africa in the future. And he's totally amazed by this vision of young Chinese people. They dream bigger. Their vision is the whole world. So, I mean, I think that it's determination from Chinese government, of course, but also there's a passion and determination from the young generations of Chinese people as well. So I'm very positive about the future. Maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, we will see a different world. We will see a different world order. We will see a different generation changing the world.
I really love that. Here living in the UK, and before this, I lived in the US. I think we have a lot less of a positive sense of the future. There's a lot of defeatism, and we project that a lot on China. There's a lot of like, China is going to fail. Now their economy is going down. And like, I think there's that very famous economist that's always predicting China's failure, like every 10 years. Like,
yeah,
I won't say his name, but yeah. So you did just speak about something really, an initiative that is like culturally really positive, and I think will have a lasting impact. And I'm excited about that. But can you also talk about something else that maybe you feel positive or excited about that is like maybe a more of a tangible initiative that is happening?
Mm-hmm. As we are speaking, there's a very important meeting taking place in China. It's the third plenum of the party's meeting. And this meeting, third plenum, is very important because it will lay out the long-term plan, especially economic plan for the country. And of course, China nowadays, everything happened is not just domestic events anymore. I mean, especially economy. I mean, economic plans, you have impact to the whole world. So the whole world is watching what's China's plan for the next 5 to 10 years. So I know there's a lot of people projecting China's economy is going to collapse anytime. Of course, the growth rate is slowing because in the past 40 years, we started from a very poor country. When you are very poor, you have a huge room to improve, right? So that's why in the past few decades, you see like very dramatic growth, but you cannot keep that fast growth all the time. So now China is relatively like improved to a middle upper income country and GDP world #2, I think. So of course it slowed down compared to the past 40 years, but that doesn't mean the economy is collapsing. And also China is experiencing this transition period. Also during the 20th Party Congress, China announced the plan. Our President Xi announced the different goal in the next phase of development. So China already improved from a very war-torn, poor country to a well-off society where most people are like middle income, and we get lifted people out of extreme poverty. We finished our first goal in that first centenary. Next, one important task is to reduce the inequality, reduce the excessive income of the super rich, and improve the still underdeveloped region, improve the income of the less rich people. So make it more balanced development. That's the very important goal. You may hear some people complaining, whoa, like we lose this much money, like real estate is really bad. Of course, during this transition, you're gonna reform a lot of reform, and that's gonna hurt some people's interests. But it depends on what kind of businessman, what kind of entrepreneurs you talk to. Some entrepreneurs are just sad because this is like going nowhere, so much money is going bad. And some entrepreneurs are busy every day. They have so much work to do. They have so many business to make. So it depends on who you talk to. So like different sections are having different experiences. But it's good for the majority of the people. And now China's next goal is we got to achieve high quality development. What does that mean? I think one important thing is to achieve technological renovation. China is already quite cutting edge in terms of e-cars, solar panels, AI, all this technology. So they are trying to be more innovative. China is spending trillions of our currency into building schools, campuses on developing cutting edge technology. So in the future, if this chip war, trade war doesn't work anymore. So now the US banning chips, try to slow China down. It's only going to slow China for a few years, but it won't be too long because they are start to innovate themselves. And I'm sure in the next 5 or 10 years, it's going to be dramatically different. And the technology advancement will be unstoppable in China. So this is the economy. Of course, we are experiencing some challenges because of sluggish external consumption. China used to do a lot of exports, but because of the whole world is experiencing this sluggish economy, the consumption is slow. So China is doing everything to boost the domestic consumption. And in some areas, it's more challenging, more competitive. And in China, we always say, wow, everything is so competitive. Everybody's so competitive. These people are working nonstop. I mean, that's the spirit of us. We are never going to stop. So we are experiencing some challenges. But right now, this meeting is laying out the big plan for the next 10 years to solve these challenges and solve the problems once for all, and also to be the #1 in technology innovation. One of my friends who is an expert in economy, he said, now for many entrepreneurs in other countries, it's important to come to China, maybe not doing some businesses, but it's just come here and see what's happening. Like you have to catch up with the most advanced technology, so you won't be left behind. So for many of the businessmen from Europe, North America, they had to come to China to see every now and then just to catch up with the most cutting edge technology. So I think like we don't need to believe in the Western mainstream media. Things will change very soon, and I'm quite positive about this.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It's really inspiring to hear about positive things that are happening. I mean, I think you were talking about some of the concepts that are becoming more popular in China. I think recently we had this whole thing around common prosperity, ecological civilization, which, like you're saying, it's sort of like not just about the economic growth, but how we're taking care of the planet, reducing inequality and stuff. And all of these concepts, like huge discussion in China, but barely even known about in the West, which is really remarkable given top of the news agenda is China. And there's no sort of interest or curiosity or even a potential to find out, really. So this leads to the last question we have, which we ask all of our guests, is with what's happening in the world and the difficulty in finding out the truth, would you be able to make any recommendations for people to read, listen to, or watch to more fully understand what's going on in the world today, what's going on in China, and particularly in informing and inspiring the anti-war movement? But before you do, I just want to say, obviously, everyone should follow you and all your amazing work on YouTube and all platforms.
Thank you. So if anyone interested in following my work, you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Substack. I also have running a newsletter now. So if you're interested in learning about China, you can always come to my platform to follow my content. Seeing is believing, right? So now it's easier than ever to travel to China. First, if you are from some Europe countries like France, Germany, Spain, I forgot how many, but like several European countries, and Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, you don't need a visa to travel to China. You can have 15 days or 13 days visa-free time to travel all across China. So grab your passport and come here. And you are from the United Kingdom and the US, even though there's no visa-free, but there's a new policy called 144 hours transit. So you still can come to China. And that's why recently, if you search vlogs on YouTube, you will see vloggers from around the world posting their videos in different Chinese cities. And many of them were shocked by the architectures, by the technologies, or sometimes just by the sheer fact that everything they saw are different from the media has been telling them. So I think this is really good policy, because since media is not gonna tell you, we invite you to come here and see it for yourself. And I encourage people to come here, because now like a visa is easy to apply. For some of you don't even need visa. And second, when you come here, try to talk to some Chinese people. Try to understand our perspectives. Make friends with us. We're friendly. You may encounter some bad people, because we have 1.4 billion people. There must be some bad people, bad apples. But talk to different people, understand things from our perspective. Because I think a long time ago, there were some Westerners, when they came with a very arrogant and racist attitude. Some of them make money from it, just dashing China. But none of them are telling any truth. All of them videos are filled with racism, sexism, all kinds of discrimination. So wherever I go, I try to learn the local language, talk to local people, understand why they are think different from me, why they behave different from me, because we have different ways. We have different civilizations. There's no civilization is wrong. We're just different, and that's good. And that's what China is proposing. China announced this global civilization initiative, which is to promote that we all preserve our different civilizations. That's the diversity make the earth beautiful. So if you truly want to understand China or other parts of the world, welcome, visit us, make friends with us, talk to us.
Who could say no to that?
Definitely.
Okay, and you too, come here, come to China. I've been meeting everybody in Beijing now.
We don't need much persuasion. But it's really important that those people-to-people exchanges, like you say, because as we are in an era of a new Cold War, really important actually to speak to each other and to kind of get over those kind of lies and propaganda that there is. But we're just so grateful that you joined us today, by the way. It's been a really wide-ranging conversation. And thank you for your patience in answering all of our questions. I know we took you on quite a big tour of all the hot topics, basically.
I'm honored. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to join your gals show to discuss politics.
Brilliant. And if you've enjoyed this show, please do like and subscribe, leave a comment, and see you next time. And thanks again very much for joining us, Li Jingjing.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you next time.